Welcome to the Avant Stamp 4S tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to cover the following topics: a brief overview of the Avant website found at www.avantassessment.com. We'll look at logging into the stamp test navigation, resuming a test, accessing reports, and then how to contact Avant in case you need any support while testing. Our company website is the location that contains all of the most up-to-date information. You'll notice in the top right-hand corner of the web page are the navigation points. Under Test and Training and Resources and About and the Sign In button we'll talk about in just a moment. The most important area is really under the Resources. Under the Resources, you'll notice that there is a link to the user guides. This is where you will come to access all of the critical user guides for the Stamp 4S test. When you go to that site, you'll notice that they are organized in terms of the assessments below on the bottom of the page, and you'll just click on the one that is associated with the assessment that you're looking at. This is for the Stamp 4S test, so you would click on that button, and it will bring you to this page that has all of our support documents linked and on this particular page. You'll notice under Technology, Coordinator Guides, Test Taker Guides, all of these are here. Now, we update these on a regular basis, so that's why we really want you to come to the website to look at the most up-to-date current support documents for all the assessments. You'll also notice that on that particular website there is a very important one that we really like to point out called the Stamp 4S Benchmark and Rubric Guide. This particular document is very helpful for both the teachers and the students. This outlines what criteria we utilize to evaluate the written and the spoken responses, as well as some of the topics that students are going to encounter as they take the assessment. So this is a great one to print out. You'll notice that there's a print and a PDF option for this, and you can certainly access that and share that with the students before testing. Very, very helpful for them to be able to know exactly what criteria is going to be used in evaluating their responses. You'll also notice on our company website that there is now what we call a universal login. Under this Sign In button, you can click on that, and it brings you to this page that allows the users to access the test right from that particular site. And this will kind of walk them into the system. We call this a universal login because it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or if you're a student coming in. It will recognize that test code that you put into that field, and it will direct you to the correct location. So for the students, if they come to this site, they'll put in their test code in that particular spot, and then it will take them to the next page, which asks them to put in their password. So it's a very clear focus on test code on one screen, password on the other, and then they can log in from that particular spot. We also have a very direct URL at app.avantassessment.com that brings you to this page that is more familiar, including both the test code and the password on that same page. And the students can put in the test code and the password and then click on the login button to move into the assessment. When they click on that login button, it will bring them to this page, and on this page you'll notice that they have two choices. They can start a new test, or they're coming back in to continue a test. So the first time they log into the system, they'll click on the Start a New Test, and when they do that, it'll bring them to this page that says, okay, you need to enter a login name. We suggest that for a login name, using a student ID number is the best way to go. It is much more accurate and simple for them to replicate a second or a third time that they need to log into the system. So that student ID number is really the best thing. For those districts that have been rostered, we require the use of the student ID number to log into the system. Once they put that information in, they will go to the next page, which is creating a very simple profile. On this profile page, we're asking them simply to enter their name, first name and last name, and re-enter that student ID number 2 times here just to confirm. Those are the only required fields on this page, but we do ask them to put in some other information here as well. This information is very helpful for you to be able to access at the end of the test to perhaps get a sense of some of the background information or experience with language that this particular test taker has. What grade they're in, what language they learn as a child and speak with their family, and do they have, any heritage speakers in the family? These kinds of questions that they will respond to and answer here. It will only take a few moments, and again, this doesn't determine the difficulty of questions that they encounter on the test. It's just collecting information for you to be able to access after the assessment. There is a second page that they will complete if they selected certain areas on that previous page. Once they're finished with that, they'll submit it and it will take them into the assessment. Now, as they come into the assessment, this is the dashboard for the Stamp 4S assessment, and you'll notice reading, writing, listening, and speaking. You'll notice also that writing and speaking are grayed out, meaning that they're not accessible at this point, because in order for the writing to become active, the students must complete the reading section, because the system utilizes how well the student did in the reading section to determine what level of task or prompt the student is going to receive in the writing section. The same thing is true for the listening going into the speaking. The system looks at how well the test taker did in that listening section to determine the level of task or prompt to give in that speaking section. So those sections are grayed out so that the students know that indeed those sections are there, but they're not going to be active until they finish a section of the assessment. Once they click on a section, it is going to come up with a little warning saying, are you sure that you really want to take that section of the test? And they have to hit yes. We know that many times as you're trying to give directions to students who are sitting to take the test, that they may not follow the directions exactly. And this gives them a little bit of a speed bump, a little pause before jumping into that particular section. And they have to click yes to move into that. Once they do, they'll move into the assessment. This is an example of the reading portion of the assessment. This happens to be an Italian reading item. And you can see the situation or the context is given, the piece of authentic material, the realia that we want the test taker to interact with, and then the question and the answer that they will select is here. You'll notice on this page, to stop the test in the top right-hand corner, they can click that at any time. And then at the bottom, this little bar is showing movement through the test. So this will continue to move forward as the test taker moves through the assessment. If they do want to exit the test for any reason, they can click on that logout and it will let them know that they, is that really what you intend to do? And if that's so, this is the name that you will need to enter as you come back into the system. Now, I do want to take a moment and point out that the reading section and the listening section of the Stamp 4S test are adaptive, meaning that it is going to move up and down based on how well the test taker is doing. So the test begins in the middle, and then based on how well the test taker does with those kind of novice high and intermediate, low and mid questions, it will then move them up if they're doing very well, keep them at the same level if they're doing kind of in the middle, and will take them down if they did poorly on those set of items. This will happen 3 different times through the test, so that's why it's this kind of 3-stage design, and that will lead to identifying their particular level, novice low through advanced high, in the reading and the listening. So we utilize that adaptive component to really make the test focus on the ability level of the student that's appropriate, challenging them, but not overly challenging them so that they become frustrated in the experience. As they finish a section, it does communicate that they are finished with that section. There's a little check mark and it says that it's 100% complete. And now you'll notice that once that reading section is finished, the writing now becomes available as well. And as they move into the writing, there is the prompt that is given to them. A little button here, if they want to hear this prompt translated into the target language, they can click on that and they will hear that translated for them. We do that so that those students who are native speakers or heritage speakers know exactly what it is that they're supposed to do to complete this particular task. And then they will type their answers in the box here. For the Romance-based languages, all of the accented characters are included in a little clickable keypad below. For those character-based languages, the students will need to know how to input those characters using the keyboard on the computer. If they stop the test and come back in on later that same day or on another day, when they log back into the system, they'll put in their test code and their password just as they did the first time. And now when they come to this page, they're going to click on that Continue Test button. As they do so, it will let them know that it recognizes that particular code in the system. They'll put their login name in and they'll be able to continue the test. And it will communicate to them as they're continuing that they are midway through this particular skill or domain and that they need to, they're only 30% through in this case and they need to complete the other items in the assessment. So it allows them to come back into the assessment and to identify exactly where they are in that process. When they're finished with that section, it's checked off and they move into, for example, this case, the listening. And the listening items look like this. Again, where the situation or the context is given, a little play button that allows them to click on that play button to hear the audio stimulus that they're going to listen to, and then they're going to answer the question based on that audio. This blue button allows them to click on it 2 times. So they have 2 opportunities to listen to the entire audio. They can click on it once if they know the answer. They can select that and move forward. If they need to hear it another time, they can click on that a second time and they will be able to listen to that audio a second time. After the second time of clicking on that button, it will turn to gray and they will no longer be able to listen to that. Their opportunity to listen is completed and they need to select an answer and move forward. At the conclusion of the listening, they will then move into the speaking section. And very much like the writing, the prompt is given, little blue button. At the bottom, they can click on that and hear that prompt translated, spoken to them in the target language. And then they have the ability to record. They will click on the Begin Recording button to begin their recording. They will record their response, and then, as it says, they need to listen to their response. If there's any problem with the audio, they're the first level of quality control. And so if it didn't work well, if there was static, if there was noise in the background, they can click on the Delete button and delete that and redo it. And right now they can do that an unlimited number of times. So the little volume meter on the right hand side is a live meter that actually moves up and down as the audio is being recorded, so that they can just see that the technology is working the way that it's supposed to and everything is working well. This is the area, again, that having the students listen to that audio and to confirm that everything worked the way that it was supposed to is really important. And we give them full control of accessing and working with this. This is no longer using Flash, so this is an HTML5 compliant player, so you don't need to worry about having the latest version of Flash installed and updated on your computer. At the conclusion of the assessment, and it is going to take around 2 hours for most students to complete the entire assessment, about 40 minutes for the reading, 20 minutes for the writing, about 40 minutes for the listening, and 20 to 25 minutes for the speaking as well. So for the entire assessment, it will take about 2 hours to complete. All sections can be delivered over multiple days. If that is what is needed within your particular schedule, that's not a problem at all. It's not a time test. Students can move really at their own rate and pace through the assessment, but generally that's what we find. Coming back to our company website, under the test link, you will be able to access what we call our sample tests. And by clicking on that button, it will bring you to this page, and you can just click on any one of these buttons that it gives you access to that particular language sample test. And the sample test is very different from the actual test in the sense that it is not adaptive, but it is delivering exactly in the same structure and design as the actual test. It's just much shorter, and it doesn't give any feedback to the student either. So it's just a good opportunity to be able to come in to take that sample test to get a sense of the kinds of questions that they might encounter, how the technology works, including the writing and the speaking as part of the sample test. So it's a great thing to have students go in and to practice with that sample test to become very familiar with the kinds of questions that they're going to encounter, as well as the kind of technology that they'll experience as well. For the teachers to access the data or the results, coming back to our company website and clicking on that universal login will bring you back to this login, same login that the students are going to, but now the teacher will put in their teacher code, which always ends with that -T that identifies it as being special for the teacher. Once you put that in and click on the login, it will take you to this page where you will then put in your password associated with that particular login, and then you'll be able to access all of the reports and the data for your particular group. When you come in, the first thing that you're going to see is a date range finder that allows you to look at uh, the range of time in which the students are testing that you want to look at. By default, it's looking at 6 months, and so it just kind of puts that in there automatically, but you can change this to anything that you want to look at that specific data. And then you get to see a very quick summary of all of the students in that particular cohort or group that tested, and to see the distribution of scores. So this gives you a very good idea of the areas of strength and the areas of challenge for this particular group. Below that, you'll see the individual scores for each student. The reading and the listening scores are available immediately upon completion of that particular section. So you will see those scores available for the students when they finish those sections. The writing and the speaking take 5 to 7 business days after the students have completed all of the responses in those sections. And you'll see those scores come in as they are completed. On the far right hand side, you'll see a link to an individual report. And by going into that individual report, you can see the scores that they attained in each of the domains. And then for the writing and the speaking, you'll notice the sample 1, 2, and 3 for each of these give you access to the actual student writing and spoken responses that they submitted. The numbers to the right are the scores that our trained raters have given to that sample. And you can click on any one of those and it will allow you to access exactly what the student saw and their particular response. The same is true for the writing as well as for the speaking. And when you come in, you can click on the play button and you can actually hear the student response for that particular student. At the bottom of that page, there are some commands that you can actually export all of this information, including that demographic or profile information that the students put in at the beginning, as well as the summary. You can export that summary data, or you can actually do a class batch of all of the reports if you want individual reports to be distributed to the students. So at the bottom of that page, you have access to that particular information. If you need to contact Avant for any reason on our company website, under the About link, you can click on that and it will bring you to the Contact Us page that looks like this. And there are a number of ways that you can get in connection with our support staff at Avant. Of course, the telephone number is probably the easiest and the fastest way to get support. We have our support staff standing by to respond on the telephone from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And so they're standing by to assist. If email works better for you as you're in a lab that may not have access to a telephone, for example, you can use our email, which is support@avantassessment.com. And there's also a web form that you can use to access us as well. Again, we have support staff who are standing by to assist you to make the process as easy as possible. Thank you, and just let us know if you have any other questions.